Okay, so for this final video, we're going to put this in Substance and hopefully get a decent texture out of there. We're just going to do something simple and just rely on Substance for this one, and just talk you through how to get this out and just put something simple on without baking any special maps or anything. The first thing I'm going to do with this is just double check over it, see if I've not got any vertices pushing through any of these straps like this. And if you have, just move them in or just kind of scale this out a little bit. And that'll just give you some artifacts with ambient occlusion maps or whatever when you come to bake maps in Substance. Okay, so the first thing I notice about this is it's called box. So I want to just rename it to barrel. And then I want to center the object like this. But then I realize the pivot isn't in the right place. So I'm going to go into my hierarchy and just center the pivot to the object and then center the object to the scene. And what I like to do is put my pivot at the bottom. So I'm going to raise this up so it's sat on the floor kind of, and then just effect pivot again and just put the pivot in the middle of the scene. And this is helpful when I'm placing things in engines, so I can just plant them on the floor and they're already there. Okay, and the other thing is make sure you've got one material on there. So I've got this material on the whole thing. What you don't want is like a multi-sub setup. So it's there, and like there is a separate material, and then the wood is another material, and because that's going to bring it into Substance as two separate UV tiles. So I've just got one there. I'm going to rename that. I'm going to put barrel for that material as well. Okay, we're going to bring this out now. So if you notice, I've got other things in my scene. So what I really want to do is export the selected item. So I'm going to select this and I'm just going to export selected. And if you just hit export, what it's going to do is it's just going to export everything in your scene into one FBX, and we don't want that. So I have done this previously. So I'm just going to run through it again. So I'm just going to go overwrite that one and press yes. Just make sure you've got all the right things ticked that you want. Default should be fine. And we're going to go OK. Now we're going to go into Substance. And you can get this for a year if you're a student, as long as you can prove that you're a student. We're going to go into File New and File Select. Just going to pick our barrel FBX and just hit OK. And what you'll get is the UV view and a nice barrel mesh. Okay, the first thing I like to do here is I go into my layers and I delete the default layer. And the second thing is to go into texture settings, scroll down a little bit, and go to bake mesh maps. And what this does is Substance quite clever in that it can get data out of your model into certain maps that it might use for smart materials. So I'm going to change my resolution to 2K, and I'm going to just turn off normal, world space normal, and ID because I don't really want them. And I'm just going to keep these ones because these come in handy. So I'm just going to bake selected maps. And if you've got any vertices poking through other vertices, you might get some little artifacts on your UV. But we're looking quite clean at the minute, so we'll go with that. Now, I'll go back to my layers. One of the first things I do is just experiment with, what things look nice. I'm not a big texture guy. I'd rather get somebody else to texture my stuff. So what I did before, I'm just going to replicate what I did before, is I used the beach or the ship wood. So I'm just going to bring that on and just have a look what it looks like. Okay, that looks great. And then I'm going to bring in some steel and just put that underneath or over the top. It doesn't really matter where you want to put it. And just check that looks all right for these bits. Okay, and that's fine. Now, obviously, I don't want the pieces of wood to be steel. And alternatively, I don't want the steel straps to be wood. So what I need to do is I've not baked out any ID maps or anything like that. So what we can do is we can make use of the fact that it's all separate elements, and we can either select the UVs and apply certain materials to certain UV islands, or certain materials to certain elements within the model. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to use one layer at the minute. I'll use the steel layer. What I can do is I can go and right click on the steel and we want to create a black mask. Okay, and basically what it's going to say is everything that is black is not going to show, but everything that is white is going to show this material. So we're going to paint this black mask, but we don't want to just paint it with a brush tool. We want to be able to select either the elements or the actual UV, and we can do that with two brushes. So we can go into this brush here, which is Polygon Fill, and we can have a look at the top, and we can have lots of different options. So we can go Polygon Fill, and if we double click on the polygon, it will actually fill in the mask with that. So you can see it kind of filling in here. Or we can go to UV View and just double click on the UV. So there it is, there and there. And we should be good to go. So we can go back to our paint, and there we go. Now what I'll do with my layer is I'll drag my wood on the bottom, and we get a good wood material. And that is basically where we're up to at this point. Now we'll get into other things like tweaking the texture to make it look a little bit more bespoke.